Since the dawn of the automobile, men, and way before them, women, have chased speed. It invokes an adrenaline rush that hits our primal hunter instincts right in a satisfying sweet spot. But as fast as we can go, there's always faster. Every benchmark can be broken, every rush can be bettered. Historically, no one has done speed, especially when mixed with a dash of beauty, better than Ferrari. The team from Maranello has fielded a car in every season of Formula One. But the impact of the prancing horse stretches beyond the confines of the highest level of single-seater motorsport. These are our favourite Ferrari racing cars ever. If you do enjoy this video, please don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon to make sure you see everything from Goodwood Road and Racing. The Ferrari 166 wasn't the first Ferrari racing car. That honour goes to the 125S, of which the 166 was an evolution. But the 166 was the first to achieve great internationally recognised success. In today's terms, it was a simple design. A tube frame chassis designed by Lampredi and a 2-litre V12 engine from Colombo were mated. It produced 130 horsepower, and top speed varied between 106 and 134 miles an hour depending on the setup. While there was modernist double wishbone front suspension, the rear still sat on leaf springs. But in 1950, that meant it was at the forefront of technological development. Between them, the 166S and later 166mm would win the Targa Florio, the Mille Miglia twice, Le Mans 24 Hours and the Spa 24 Hours. Its win at Le Mans made it the first car ever to do the hat-trick of Targa, Mille and Le Sarthe. Later, a handful of 166s would be fitted with larger engines, a 170 horsepower 2.3 litre version of Colombo's Icon, to become the 195S in 1950. Carrying pretty much the same chassis with some body modifications, the 195S continued the 166's winning streak, claiming victory at the Mille Miglia. So successful was the 166 that, in a time when racing cars were often built in single-figure numbers, 47 166s were produced between 1947 and 1953. If the 166 made Ferrari a truly recognised competitor on the world stage, it was the Tipo 500 that set the stall out for the Italian marque's Formula One heavy future. Formula One had begun in 1950 and was dominated for 2 seasons running by Alfa Romeo. But come 1952, there were very few manufacturers willing to build cars to the expensive and, in the face of Alfa Romeo's dominance, apparently futile F1 rules. So, the rule makers abandoned the idea of continuing on the same course and adopted Formula 2 regulations for the 1952 season, which was great for Ferrari, as it was one of the, also quite small, number of manufacturers with a ready-to-go F2 car, the Tipo 500. Alfa Romeo jacked in its F1 program after the Italian government refused to sanction any more cash to support it, so Ferrari had very little opposition. But that background does not diminish the Tipo 500's achievements. No car could touch the little Ferrari for 2 seasons. Alberto Ascari won both the 1952 and 1953 titles at a canter powered by a Lampredi-designed inline-4 engine. In fact, Ascari and Ferrari's record of 7 wins in a row was not beaten until Sebastian Vettel and Red Bull's 2013 dominance. If you discount the Indy 500, which was part of the World Championship but raced to different rules, and which Ferrari didn't enter in 1953, the Tipo 500 actually won 9 races in a row. To show that fiddling with the rules is no new thing in F1, the rule makers completely changed the regulations for 1954, making the Tipo 500 obsolete. Ferrari bored the engine out to 2.5 litres to make the Ferrari 625 using the same successful chassis design, but by then, Mercedes had arrived with its W196 and Maserati's 250F was on the scene. The 625 would be abandoned after a pair of unsuccessful seasons in favour of a Lancia designed and built D50. Modified by Ferrari, the D50 would propel Juan Manuel Fangio to the 1956 F1 title. But in the background, Ferrari began working on another design of its own. When in 1958 the rules changed again, changing fuels from alcohol to avgas, Ferrari brought out the sleek 246 Dino, a rather stunning machine now powered by a Dino V6 engine named after Enzo Ferrari's son. With 240 horsepower, the car was both the first F1 car with a V6 engine and the first to take a British driver to the F1 title, with Mike Hawthorne's single win at Ramps in 1958 enough to pip Stirling Moss and Van Wall to the crown. That would make the 246 the final front-engine car to claim the F1 crown, as the British revolution of mounting the engine behind the driver began to change the face of F1 that very season, much to the disgust of Enzo Ferrari. The 246 would soldier on to 1960, adding the title of final front-engine car to win an F1 race in the 1960 Italian Grand Prix, in no small matter influenced by the fact that the major British teams boycotted the race due to the decision to run on the longer oval hybrid layout. While the 246 held sway in Formula 1, it was down to the 250 Testa Rossa to lead the charge in what was Enzo Ferrari's first love, the World Sports Car Championship. Launched in 1957, the 250 TR was, you guessed it, a response to a change of rules by the championship. Engine capacity would now be limited to 3 litres, and Ferrari's own 3-litre version of its Colombo V12 would be the perfect propulsion. Throughout its 4-year lifetime, the 250 TR was fiddled with and improved by designer Carlo Chitti, allowing it to win 10 World Sports Car Championship races, including 3 Le Mans 24-hour wins, 3 Sebring 12-hour crowns, and the Targa Florio. Like its predecessor, the 500 TR, the 250 TR used a tube frame chassis, but with a wheelbase extended by 10 centimeters. It would gain a reputation for reliability, and while customer cars in the earlier factory Testa Rossas would have live or de Dion rear axles, the constant improvement allowed the introduction of independent rear suspension from 1960. Ferrari also persisted with the use of drum brakes, believing them to be more resistant to wear than discs, but after complaints from the drivers, it too switched to discs in 1959. But it was the beating heart of the 250 Testa Rossa that would stand the test of time, powering not just the 250 Testa Rossa, but many subsequent cars, including the likes of the 250p and even the 250 GTO. The late 1960s and early 1970s weren't exactly Ferrari's best years in terms of competition. First, those pesky Brits had come along and changed the game in Formula 1, and then Ford's fury at Enzo's manoeuvrings caused the GT40 to arrive and wipe the floor at Le Mans. And then, to add insult to injury, Porsche made its name known on the scene with the 917. Come 1974, Ferrari had withdrawn from the top level of sports car racing for the final time, and in F1 it hadn't won a driver's or constructor's crown for a decade. It became clear to designer Mauro Forieri that the issues with Ferrari's F1 car of the day, the 312B, could not be solved. So the team set about a complete change. The 312B3's replacement, the 312T, would be a revelation. Using the Ferrari flat 12 engine, actually a 180-degree V, but we won't get into that, the car featured a myriad of technical innovations. There was the transverse gearbox, hence the T in the name, a first for F1. Then the engineers tucked the suspension inboard and built the car with a much narrower chassis. When testing began, alongside the outgoing 312B3, the T was instantly much faster. Come the 1975 season, Niki Lauda would take the 312T to 5 wins and his first F1 crown. With an extra win from Clay Regazzoni, Ferrari would also take the constructor's title. The 312T wasn't done there though. Developed through the 312T's 2 to 5, it would become one of the most successful F1 nameplates of all time, winning 3 more titles and 21 more races in a 5-year championship career. It is a tricky decision as to whether the F2002 makes it onto this list or the F2004. But since we put the 2002 in our video on the greatest F1 cars of all time, we thought it time to focus on the car later in the lineage, the F2004. In case the name doesn't make it clear enough, the F2004 was the car Michael Schumacher took to the 2004 F1 Championship in dominant fashion. Powered by a 3-litre Tipo V10, the F2004 won 15 of 18 races in the 2004 season, 13 for the German and another 2 for Rubens Barrichello, as it cantered to both titles. The F2004 was a development of the not quite as dominant F2003 GA, which had also won both crowns the season before. The F2004 received bodywork upgrades and a new exhaust design and other revisions to the rear of the car. Suspension upgrades also helped to reduce tyre wear while improving the handling. So quick was the F2004 that it still holds the lap records at Albert Park, Manicourt, Monza and Shanghai today. Ferrari doesn't race a factory team in sports cars anymore. Or rather, at the moment it doesn't. A long-awaited return is heading our way in 2023, but for now the charge is led by the independent-ish AF Corsa team. The car that Amato Ferrari's team campaigned to GTE Pro WEC titles in 2012, 13 and 14, as well as Le Mans wins in 12 and 14 and multiple runners-up finishes at Le South, was the 458 Italia GT2. Based on the 458 road car and still carrying the GT2 name from the previous version of the regulations, it made its debut in 2011, powered by a 4.5-litre V8 producing 470 horsepower. While it may have been restricted by the regulations to producing less power than the road car, it proved to be more than enough. In total, including wins at Le Mans, Sebring and Petit Le Mans, the 458 GTE racked up a very impressive record of 104 wins and 103 pole positions in 617 races entered across the world in its 5 years of competition. Perhaps more importantly, it may well be the last naturally aspirated Ferrari to win a top-line championship, or even a race. Those are what we think are Ferrari's greatest racing cars of all time. But what have we left out? Let us know in the comments below.